Hey, Mary. How you doing? Happy New Year, Mary. It's good to see you. Thank you for supporting me. What's up, Thomas? My friend, Happy New Year, Thomas. We need to catch up. Call me. All right. Thank you guys for being my first two on here. What's up, Gary? Look at that. Well, you guys are coming on in here. You guys all hungover from Friday night? It was a quiet party with me. Me and New York's Rockin' Eve. A little bit of bubbly. And I think I was asleep by 12:45. Maya! All right, both you and Gary send me those requests. Maya, Gary, send me the requests. So good to see you guys. Happy New Year. Starting off the year with a very inspiring guest. I gotta tell you, she struck me. And I'll tell you why. You'll learn why during the meat of the interview. She's special. I feel like she's the future of where we're going politically, and I'm so glad I get to be in her good graces at this point. I'm going to stop my theme music a little bit short of this long duration there because we got a lot to get to in this interview, and I want Maya to be able to just tell her full story because it's worth hearing. I feel like she can use this and make people understand the true intention of what she's doing and who she's fighting for. God, I wish I was in the city to vote for her because she would have my vote. I'd be stomping all over the city of New York for her. I like her. I really do. So I am going to cut my theme music just a little bit short because we have a lot to get to. So let me do this here. All right. Welcome. Happy New Year, guys. Welcome to Soapbox Sunday. I am Jermaine Taylor. You know, it rubs me when I hear people say I stay out of politics. That notion to me is impossible. Politics pretty much affects our everyday lives. And for that reason, I value the voice, the hand that I have in picking our political leaders. I ran across Maya Contreras a couple of years ago when she was stumping for the Biden-Harris ticket. And there was something about her tone, informative tone, that stayed with me. It struck me. And I began to follow her on Instagram and I followed her on Twitter. The girl is the truth. It turns out that she was then advocating for the issues that are now the platform of her campaign, as she's now a candidate for District 12, a congressional candidate for District 12 in New York. Those issues are her journey. Those issues are her story. And for that reason, she is my first guest of Soapbox Sunday 2022. I'm so glad she said yes. I also called in some backup for this particular interview. You know the face, you know the name. Gary Carter Green of You Can't Beat Blue is going to be on to help me co-host this wonderful episode. So guys, hold on as both Maya Contreras and my co-host Gary Carter Green hops on the soapbox. Hold on, guys. All right. They'll be jumping on here shortly.
Hi.
We all know how Instagram Live can work. Let me know if you guys can see me. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a delay for both of you guys jumping on, but it's just the way lives are. All right. Can you guys see me? Send me something. If you can see the guest, send me something in the comments. Let me know if you can
Maya,
see
can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm getting a connecting circle for Jermaine, so I'm not there yet.
Shortly. Thank you, guys. Happy New Year to everybody. Yay. Don't we love technology? We do. I love it. Can you guys see me? Let me know in the comments if you can see me and the guest. Oh, Maya is unable to join. Maya, try. Okay. Both. Okay. I can see them. Huh? They're saying they're unable to join. Let's try this again. I can't see them. So, guys, jump off and send me. Let's try this again. All right. All right. Let's see here. I can't see them for some reason. All righty. It's saying unable to join on my end. I don't know why I get that little red thing. My volume is missing. I will jump in when I hear. But I can't see Maya. Okay, now we can only see you, Jermaine. All right, Maya, send me another request again, and let's try this one more time. I thought we had worked this out yesterday, but I guess we didn't. Let's try it. Okay, Gary. Okay, we have Maya now. Okay, great. Let's see
I can see myself, and now I can see Gary, but I can't see Jermaine again. Oh no!
We'll get this figured.
It's Sundays, and
my
technology issues are.
It's so.
I'd say in the COVID age have become quite a regular
and Jermaine now. Okay,
thing,
hold on. Just
unfortunately.
stay there, Maya. It'll give it time. Okay, Sam, Maya, you're unable to join. I don't understand why you're unable to join. This is really weird. Huh. Okay. I can see all three of you. Okay, just stay there, guys, and it'll jump on because they can see all three of us. All right. Okay, everybody can see everybody, and I can only just see me. I can't see now. We lost Maya. Why is it saying that nobody can join? This is so aggravating. Oh my God, this is not going to be the way this year goes. It's just not, and I'm not going to get frustrated. All right, so one last time. Everybody's saying hi to everybody. All right, so I have no request to join. There is Maya. What's up, girl? This is weird. I know. Now I can see you. Gary will be on shortly. Okay, there's Maya. Hey. Okay.
Hi.
Now let's get Gary on here and see if he can jump on, and then we'll have a show. You look so pretty, girl.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my God.
Just blew the hair.
There he is. Look at that. Hey.
Did we do it? I think this is great. Yay.
Did. Thank you, Gary.
Hashtag Democrats deliver. Sometimes it takes us a second because we're a complicated group of people, but we get it done.
It's so true.
Do some introduction here. Gary, meet Maya. Maya, meet Gary.
Hi. We've chatted via Twitter.
Yes,
but it's good to see both your faces together here now. So happy Sunday. I'm drinking coffee as we speak. So I'm gonna try to deliver the energy right now.
Michael, bring Gary some coffee so he can be in with us.
Oh, I'm so good. I am so good.
All right, guys, this is going to be a really hearty and meaty interview. So we're going to press through these questions as fast and best as we can. But Maya, I want you not to hold back, deliver. Let us know why you are the one to unseat Carolyn Maloney. Gary, because you are my esteemed guest, I want you to start first.
Oh,
what
thank
do you have
so
for Maya?
Yeah. Maya, Jermaine and I have been talking about you for so long, and we're really excited. I'm excited you're involved in this race. As so many great candidates, you really draw where you stand on so many of the issues from personal experience, specifically growing up. One of your big issues is housing justice. And that comes from your own personal experiences being raised with a mother and father who at times were living below the poverty line. There's a piece on your website. It's a picture of a diary entry, which just really got me. And it says, 2 days ago, you're 10 years old. And the writing is the writing of a 10-year-old girl. 2 days ago, our landlord said we had 3 days to come up with $1,000 or we have to move. We have to move to a storage unit if we get kicked out. That was your reality. I'd like you to just talk a little about how being raised that way and the struggles of your mother and father influence where you stand on issues today.
Sure. So I was actually raised by a single mother. I love my father. He is in my life now, but as a child, he was not in my life. And that's for a lot of his own factors that he had to deal with. My father grew up under Jim Crow. He was somebody that dealt with drinking from a segregated water fountain. He was treated decently because he was a star basketball player in high school and college. He was a record-breaking college. But as soon as his knee blew in the ABA, as he was moving into the NBA, all of a sudden, kind of America didn't feel that he really had any worth outside of athleticism. And so at that point, he kind of gave up in a way. And so he wasn't part of my life during that time period. Meanwhile, my mother was raising her 3 children on her own. Both my mother and father have college degrees. And for a long time, that was equated with automatic track to success in America. But that really hasn't been true for many decades now.
Yeah.
And then I will also say that my mother was working several part-time jobs to try to be home for us when we got home from school. Unfortunately, that didn't always work out. The jobs that she was working were the kind of jobs that are still offered today, low wages, minimum wages, that still don't make ends meet. So at one point when I was writing that journal entry, I already knew the stress of what my mother was dealing with. We already knew that we were dealing with economic insecurity. We knew that we were dealing with housing insecurity. I, like many families across America, move over and over and over again. And you usually move over and over again because you try to find cheaper rent,
Sure.
A cheaper way of life. And so at that point, my mom was she made literally $1 too much to qualify for food stamps at that moment. Seriously, because my mom came home with an envelope in her hand and she was crying. She was going to lose what is now called SNAP benefits.
Oh, yeah.
So my mom had to move money over from trying to pay for housing to pay for food, which many families in America do. Again, they make decisions on which they have to prioritize. So because of that, my grandfather had a storage facility in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And my mom she had the key to the storage facility, didn't tell my grandfather that we moved into it. Because I think she was embarrassed that we had gotten to this point. So during that time period, we were very lucky. There was a toilet in the facility, but there was no bath. No shower, no refrigerator, no stove, none of that. We lived on the floor. We lived on top of blankets as my mom tried to continue to work to try to move us out of that. What I saw during that time period, and what a lot of people in America who are disenfranchised or who deal with discrimination, what you start imbibing during that time period as a child, you start seeing how things work in the country.
Sure.
And you especially start seeing how it works for people who are growing up in poverty. I started seeing that the notion, if you just work hard enough, and that you could pull yourself up by your bootstraps, was a lie, because I saw how hard my mother was working and I knew that wasn't true for us. Then I also saw the stigma around poverty. And then I also saw that while there are some financial benefits, they were being culled back, cut by our government, trying to move people away from it, saying there's a cultural dependency, but that's not what it is. I saw at that time, at that young age, that this country was apt to blame people and not the policies for being poor, instead of the policies that were keeping them in poverty. So that's kind of how it started informing my decisions. Bureaucracy was really informing my decision. It is so hard for so many families to navigate these systems, to move out of poverty because there's lack of access to opportunities, to access benefits, things that are owed. And so I started learning that early on. So I would say that was the first time that was really informing my politics and policy at that age of 10, was just from my experience.
Let me reach back to you. You were talking about the working poor.
Yeah.
It's a capitalist society that we live on. They are making a lot of money on poor people's struggles in this town. This country. Do you have solutions? Do you have anything that's in a part of your platform, anything that's even a sketch plan as to how to bring the immediate community that you're running to represent District 12 out of that? Do you have anything that can possibly address that, like day one? Okay.
Yeah. One of the things when you are dealing with these type of issues, you're always thinking about how could this work better? How could my community be helped? How could myself be helped? How could other people be helped? And one of the things that I started noticing, and it's something that I would say Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that really helped informed how I go about policy, which is, she said, I wish that Roe versus Wade wasn't just put up in this big wall as one big piece of legislation, instead of being codified, instead of being put into law in pieces to make it strong. So to me, we have to approach policy in a way that builds brick by brick by brick, so that it builds this foundation in a stronger way.
Mm-hmm.
I think of people who are in poverty as not at the bottom. I think of them as the foundation of this country. We're the ones that the moment money comes in, we're spending it right out.
Sure.
So one of the things that is a day one solution for me is the way we measure poverty in this country is completely incorrect. We're leaving so many people out in the cold who are experiencing poverty, but aren't considered poor by federal guidelines, right? We have an outdated system of how we are measuring poverty. The way we originally measured poverty in the 60s and 70s was based on an antiquated system of the wife, this like cisgender heteronormative, like the wife goes and picks up the groceries and she balances the checkbook and the guy comes home with the paycheck and then that's how they balance it. But that's not how we do it anymore.
Sure.
If even in poverty, we need cell phones to communicate with work. We need different types of transportation to get to work. We need different things that we didn't need in the 1960s and 70s that we need now to survive. We need the internet.
Those things are often seen as luxuries to people that are poor. The people that are making those decisions when they see someone who's on government assistance with a fairly decent car and a cell phone, the image of poverty isn't what it really is. They can be probably at the poverty line, but they have these things that makes them look as though they're not.
That's that's a narrative that has been built into this country over 100 years by business leaders.
Exactly.
Who firmly did not want anybody to get things outside of themselves. Right. So, and woven through that is this idea that of all of these things are like embedded in racism and racist tropes and different things that they didn't earn that when we know that rich people get giveaways all the time.
Yeah, that's how they stay rich.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I was doing contracts with a woman who runs a couple of orchestras and I went with her to the bank and I remember I had just paid $50 to get a new stack of checks. While we were there, she needed new checks and they said, oh, that's on us. That's for free, right? Just because her money makes money. This is how rich people succeed in the country all the time is by subsidies, giveaways, tax breaks, things that they call luxury items.
But
they
that's welfare too. Any help from the government
that is all welfare.
Colored differently.
It's public assistance. It would be considered public assistance. So So to me, Democrats unfortunately have to do 20 different things all at once. We have to combat narratives that have been formed by 100 years. We have to educate the public to understand why we have to go about policy in the way we are. But I will also say this, one of the things that makes me different from the other people that are running in my district and from the current incumbent is we do have to approach things in a creative way. And by the way, DC is allergic to creativity. Okay. Yeah. I want you to know that right now. And I know this. My grandfather taught at American University. My mom was born in Washington, DC. I spent my summers going to visit my grandfather in Washington, DC. And he was a political artist. And he always told me, listen, the only reason we need to talk to these people in government is we need to make sure that they're allocating money towards the arts, right? Sure. But other than that, they don't want to look at things creatively. To me, we have to look at things creativity. That's why I said on day one, we have to change how we measure poverty. And the reason why we do that is because then it would give an actual picture of what is needed in our country. If we redid it to calculate how we actually live now, then we would see that there are so many more people are beneath the poverty line. Then that would make more people eligible for SNAP and for subsidies, for housing, for this. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, we saw it last year, how close people were to, the brink, especially during the pandemic. People that were doing well pre-pandemic, but all of a sudden that one paycheck pretty much turned their lives upside down. And all of a sudden they were needing the assistance they used to look down for other people receiving. But I have to piggyback on something you said earlier, talking about the relationship with money. Do you understand, or do you realize, or would you agree that Black and brown people need to be taught how to handle their finances a little bit more responsibly, so that what we do get, we're able to stretch and make it grow?
No, because
so? Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because
we're never taught. Even I wasn't taught that, and I'm fairly fiscal responsible now. But it took me a minute to get there, and I felt like were you ever taught that? What about you, Gary? Gary, were you ever taught that?
No.
Okay.
That way too late.
Yeah. What Maya, you said, well, I mean, you don't think that's the solution?
I would say that that's not the solution because it's the wrong entry point into the issue. The issue is if you don't have anything, how are you going to go ahead and invest? Right? So this is the thing with my family working full time. If you say, hey, this is how you save, when my mother had no ability to save anything because every single paycheck went right out the door, that can't work like that. What we need overall in our systems is, yes, the way to discuss economics, sure, and that should start early, but that should start for all school children, and it should be available for adults as well.
Sure.
Everybody needs to have economic education. However, the way that the economics are currently working in this country, that's not where the emphasis should be. The emphasis right now is that the most of the people, that wealth has been massively redistributed to the top. So to me right now, that wouldn't be the priority of saying, hey, I know you've got $2. What do you do to save or invest in that? When we talk about this idea of like financial literacy, everybody needs that. But this is the thing. When you do grow up poor the way that I did, the second that you get money, finally, you want to get something for yourself that makes you maybe feel better, or you want to get stuff. And it's hard to save even if you do put $1 or $2 away. If you have one medical bill, it's gone. So even if we're going into educating people that are low income, I mean, look at this pandemic. We had a big stimulus that happened, and it was the first time in decades where people were paying off credit cards for the first time. The second that stimulus money went away, credit card bills went back right through the roof. All the things went right back through the roof. So to me, that's what I'm saying. Look, I want people to focus on the fact that we have a deeply, deeply unfair economic system right now. And that financial literacy needs to be placed on the fact that the people that have all the money are hoarding and keeping all that money. That's where the responsibility should be. No
doubt. Gary, go ahead with that. It's question 7. Go ahead.
Well, you know, I'd like to follow up real quickly on this if I can. We're looking at this issue that you're talking about, and it's such a good point, but we have housing inequity, and we have minimum wage issues, and we have education. And which of these priorities is the first step to alleviating some of the pressures that keep people from saving money? Is it housing? Is it making more money per hour? I mean, where do you start? And but what's step 1?
Well, the reason why I say step 1 is remeasuring the poverty scale is because we don't have a clear picture. It is very difficult to work on a car or anything if you don't have the tools to do it. And right now, America has the wrong tools to measure poverty. We still equate the stock market with the success of our economy. The stock market is not an indicator of actual poverty that is happening in this country. It is completely wrong. We should have a poverty index in this country, not a stock market index. I don't even own stock in the stock market. How does that, you know what I mean? So why are we using that? So to me, what I would like to change instead is to recognize that all of these things are deeply connected. Environmental issues are connected to housing issues. Abuse issues are connected to housing and job issues. Discrimination is connected to job issues. If you're discriminated at work, which by the way, I would love a study about how much money has been lost by men and women who have been sexually harassed at their jobs and don't go to their jobs anymore. We don't even have that information. So right now, what we're missing is tons of information. From the information that we do have, where we do know where we need to invest in. We do have plenty of that information. But there's so much other information that we don't know. Women that are going through menopause, we don't know how much money they're losing every year on treatments and this. There's all these heavy economic issues that are stacking on top of each other, and we're not handling any of it. And when we do fund some programs, for example, the 9/11 fund, I was just meeting with a 9/11 survivor. She's like, that money is gone. She has to still fight to access that money because it was drained much quicker than they thought. And that's the thing. The government likes to pat itself on the back once they come up with a social program, but they forget they need to keep funding it and fund it more. And they always forget that once these resources are made available, there are so many people that need them, it tends to be gone. Even with the eviction moratorium, there was some money available in New York State to help people. It was gone like this, depleted, you know?
That $1,200 initial stimulus was out the window pretty much before people even got it.
Yep.
And I was interested in finding out, like, what metric systems did you guys come up with to decide that $1,200 was going to make people stretch these next 6 months of their lives? I didn't understand that to begin with. I mean, in New York, that's not even people's rent. So I was like, well, where are they thinking these people are coming from?
Yeah.
So you just pretty much want to dismantle the system of big business of the working poor is what you're trying pretty much to do.
I don't want to, it's not that I want to dismantle. That would be too limited.
Well, it would help because, you know, they are making money on poor people's back. I mean, have you been to the hood?
Oh, no. Well, it's where I live. It's where I live. But what I would say this, dismantle to me seems like that is the kind of language that like Republicans are going to like, they're trying to take everything that we've got. I'm like, no. I want you guys to pay your taxes. There shouldn't be conglomerates. You know, we shouldn't have conglomerates. We should make sure that people are able to unionize. We need to make sure that independent media, things like this, those are getting funding. We need to reinvest in public television. We need to reinvest in the word public television, public internet, public housing. We need to put the public back into our government and stop with this idea that we're going to, you know, deregulate everything. You know, so that's what I'm saying.
Semantics means a lot with them. You have to like pretty much dismantle their connotation of certain words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because I think what they worry about, for example, I think when they hear the word dismantle, then they're just like, so you don't want us to exist anymore? Well,
Exactly.
You know, at the same time, it's kind of like, well, how are you serving this country? I want to examine it on case-by-case basis. If it's a company that is actually doing good, not that many, but in case if there was a company that was doing good, then we can look at that model and see how that's working. So to me, I want to make sure that right now we have so many people that are offshoring their money, not paying their taxes. They're doing reverse mergers, which means that they are moving their money outside of the countries. And so that's kind of where I want to focus on, because they're pulling out billions, if not trillions of dollars out of our economic system that would help the foundation of this country stabilize. So I would say that.
They're going to be scared of you after you're sworn in. Do you hear me?
I just think I'm saying logical things. So if they're scared of logic, they are. They are very scared of logic.
Gary, what have you?
Well, I want to know, you know, you sound ready to go. And I know, was there, when you were weighing whether or not to get into this race, and listen, this is not going to be an easy race. This district is very competitive. Was there a definitive moment in your life? Did something happen to you where you decided to cross into this world of campaigning and running to represent the people in NY12?
I would say it wasn't one definitive thing. And let me just say this for fast. I see someone says to overturn Citizen United. Absolutely. That's critical. And that would happen if we would pass For the People Act. So look up For the People Act, because that would help dismantle it. And we could pass that, and that would help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. So I would say this. There were lots of things that continue to happen in this district. I have lived in Maloney's district for 18 years, when it was the 14th district and when it was the 12th district. So I'm not someone that's just like, I kind of just want to run for Congress. I never wanted to run for office. I have worked with elected officials since I was 16 years old. I see the bureaucracy. I see the lip service. I've always seen how they've worked. However, I've always gone to sit with like City Councilwoman Carlina Rivera or Margaret Chin and sat with them to talk about how can we help with housing? How can we do this? I've always worked in that way. As someone, I'm the chairman of my neighborhood advisory board. That's almost 200,000 people that I help serve in this area. Okay. So I've always functioned in that way. But between the election of Trump and between the COVID pandemic, I already knew that this country was fundamentally broken and that we've never had a fully enfranchised democracy. I already knew we had lots of issues. But after I saw people dying and people that I know died during COVID and that didn't have the protections in place, when I saw that my friend who has a gallery up the street from me, she's a wheelchair user, she's a brilliant artist, and she lost her wheelchair accessible gallery during COVID because the landlord wouldn't negotiate with her. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm so done. I'm tired of people saying, you know, well, just be patient, you know, just wait on this. And to me, every day I spend time working to aid the people that are in my district. People know that they can call me. There are some people that are even watching that will DM me and say, I have an issue in the shelter. I have an elevator issue at my home. And I put them in touch with their local representative and I advocate on their behalf. To me, I was just like, I felt like at this moment I was doing more than what people were doing at the federal level. And I was tired of it. I understand the gridlock of Washington, D.C. I understand the hyperpartisanship of it. I understand the history of that. But at the same time, we can change the narrative and how we discuss these things and how we work with state and local governments to work together. It's 12th District.
12. Yeah. So you went from being in Hollywood talk here, a supporting player, to actually the Billy the Marquee is what you pretty much did.
It was one of those things where I was like, you know what?
You were covering for the stars like you were her understudy the whole time. All of a sudden, wait a minute, girl, we're just going to give this role to you. That's pretty much what you've done.
I got tired of it. And I will also say, you know, when I was meeting, I met with like elected officials and I would talk to them about policy. And I recognize that I knew just as much as they did on policy. Yeah. Sometimes I knew more than they did on policy. Listen, elected officials can't be experts on every area, but I also know that I am someone that knows how to bring people in that are experts in those areas and listen to their expertise and their lived experiences of what they need. And that's not what's been happening in District 12. I've seen lip service for far too long. Now, I will say people primarying Maloney, like myself now, it has been good for Maloney because it has forced her to recognize that there are groups of people that she has ignored. Oh yeah, I mean, I sat and I talked with her. I've talked to the two other women that are running in this district, and Maloney recognizes that I've maybe not focused on Black people. I've ignored Latinos. Yeah, I guess I haven't really dealt with environmental issues.
District 12. How can she not understand the demographics of her district? I mean,
she can understand it in theory, right? Just like someone like, let me go back to the Moynihan Report. We're all familiar with the Moynihan Report. It's from the 1960s. And there was a guy named Moynihan became a senator here in New York who wanted to study Black people. And he wanted to see, why are Black people so poor in this country? And he wrote this report and he was just like, I did such a good job, didn't I? Right. And it was racist and awful and left things out and came up with the worst stereotypes. And he was a well-meaning Democrat. He was really trying, right? So to me, with Maloney, she's done a lot of things that are well-meaning. You know, like to me, when she gave crock pots to Queensbridge, which is some of the largest packaging of public housing, Queensbridge actually needs to have the holes fixed in their walls. Deals with the fact that there are
asbestos.
There is lead in the walls right now. To me, there wasn't enough vocal advocacy or passion from her to show, like, listen, this is a detrimental situation. We have in our public housing right now, 30 to 35% of all Black and Latino people living in public housing right now have at least 3 issues wrong with their apartments, whether it's heating that's not working or toilets that aren't working or things that are leaking. I mean, but this is the thing. I grew up in poverty. So lots of people who don't understand. There are people that fundamentally don't understand it. And you know what? Maloney doesn't, because she said it. She said on more than one occasion, I can't imagine what it's like to go through poverty. Well, I don't have to imagine that. And because I don't have to imagine that, I know what the daily grind of that feels like. And you need to have more representatives that feel that way. Listen, I don't think being a millionaire in Congress doesn't mean that you're not going to have compassion for other people. But we do have way too many wealthy people in Congress that have been wealthy and privileged for way too long. And I got to be honest, they're quite frankly really out of touch with what people are needing in their communities.
Well, empathy does go a long way, and because you do have lived it, you have a lot more empathy than most representatives that we do have currently that are leading us. Gary, what next question do you have for Maya?
Well, we brought up Carolyn Maloney, and 3 of us involved in this interview know from our mutual interactions on Twitter that there are a lot of people, Democrats, who feel that nobody should be primarying Carolyn Maloney. They don't feel, I don't know if it's because they don't feel, or maybe they're just fans of hers, or they just don't want to see that level of contention.
It's just the D next to her name, I think.
Well, I want, it's significant. I think in our interactions on Twitter, we did see that there were some loud people. And Maya, how do you answer that question when people say to you, why would you go after Carolyn Maloney? You know, she's been there a long time. She's doing a lot of things. What do you bring that Carolyn Maloney will not bring in terms of legislation and accomplishments?
Well, I'll say right away that all the things that I've been discussing are things that she really hasn't addressed. One, two, those people that were talking to us on Twitter don't live in New York. I will tell you right now that I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people in my district, and I'm going to tell you something. They don't have a problem with me primarying her. Okay. So on Twitter, of course, it looks good. It's like me maybe liking Gavin Newsom in California and saying,
Sure.
if I can say what a great governor or this, but that is not my representative, right? So I can be a fan of some of the policies different people do, but I should also listen to how people are feeling in the district. And I will say to you that 95% of the people that I have spoken to have literally no issue with me running against her.
She has the Monet effect, if you ask me. Like from afar, she paints a very beautiful picture, but when you get up close and you dissect what she's actually been doing, it's not much.
Yeah, I will say that because I've actually gone through all of the policies that she's introduced. I've listened to hundreds of hours of her talks on C-SPAN. This is not something that I entered into lightly. I have voted for her before. I have met with her before. I've gone to a fundraiser for her before. I didn't enter this lightly, but when I was looking at my representatives and seeing where the weakest link was in my district, it was her. It wasn't my city council person. It wasn't my state legislator. It was her. And to me, I was just like, as I looked through the package of policies and looked at the demographics of what lives in my district, she wasn't helping the type of people that needed help the most. Who lives in my district? Artists, service industry people that are delivering food. And my district, by the way, is the third most unequal district in the entire United States. Wow. When you look, I will say this too, when you go to a fundraiser for Maloney, like a small one, because I can only afford like the $25 fundraiser, right, where you get in the room. And I met with her. Her energy was so low. She was kind of like, hey. When she does the multi-million-dollar ones, like my husband worked for a catering company called, we worked for a catering company, I won't say the name, and they hosted a big,
I can't pay them.
and they hosted a big event, and Maloney was there. It's on HBO special. You can see it. The energy she displayed for these multi-million-dollar donors. She said, I'm gonna fly a flag over Washington, D.C. for you. I'm gonna do all this stuff. And to me, I was just like, wow, she has a lot more energy for those people that have more of the wealth that can help in the district. I'm not saying that Maloney doesn't like the people in the district. That would be untrue. And also, by the way, I will always thank her for wanting to be a representative in our district. I think that you have to pay respect where respect is due. Oh, we lost Gary.
We did. I'll get it back on shortly.
But I don't want people to think that I'm going after her in that way. To me, I'm more presenting of a different type of representation that could happen in the district. One that is more inclusive, one that sees disability, one that sees the different demographics that are struggling. That is a little bit of just a quick overview of differences between me and Maloney. It's just one of those things. She is still working from a framework of how Democrats used to work, I would say in the 90s, right? And I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? So, and even when you look at some of the policies that she has now co-sponsored, and by the way, we all know that co-sponsoring is the laziest thing any representative can do, right? Introducing legislation is the tough stuff and where it's at. And you look at what even the stuff that she just started co-sponsoring is stuff that she ignored for years. Oh, we lost Gary again, I think.
Get on. Let me see if I can get him on here. He doesn't have a request, but he'll get on shortly.
Well, some of the things, get him back on, and then I'll finish my point and get him back.
All right, cool.
I will say some of the things that she ignored for many years are things that she could easily co-sponsor. For example, there was an act that Sheila Jackson had put in for a very long time, and it's this to study reparations. It's just to study it. It's not saying we're going to give reparations. Can we study it? Maloney never co-sponsored that. And it's been entered as long as she's been in Congress, for almost 30 years. So for 30 years, representatives like, let's introduce this legislation to study reparations. She only co-sponsored it this year. The Crown Act, when it first came out, which deals with discrimination against hair, which I actually dealt with hair discrimination on a show that I worked on. So interesting. Yeah, but she didn't co-sponsor that until later. So these are things that she's just like, it's not really a priority for me. And then all of a sudden, Suraj Patel almost won last time. And by the way, I thought he offered the Diet Coke of policy. It was very light. It wasn't very substantive, but he almost won. And it just showed you that the district was ready for change in that moment. So Maloney almost got, almost 60% of our district voted against Maloney. So people have to recognize that the majority of the district is ready for change. And that's what I want people to recognize when they're saying, you know, why are you challenging Maloney? It's because the district is ready for change.
Do you think the demographics of your district changed and she just didn't change with the electorate? Because I'm trying to understand what got her in and what is the impediment right now that's
you see me, Maya?
I do. I see you, Gary.
Okay. I'm going to take this up. First of all, I want to thank you all for making
he's like
such
on
dramatic
end.
statements when I'm lost. I feel so wanted.
Gary,
Where's Gary? Where's Gary?
Get out
I'm gonna launch this question, and just in case I get booted again,
hold on.
kick it with Jermaine. But
there he is. I see him. All right, yay! What's going on?
The question that I had is,
okay.
You know, we're dealing with a lot of progressive versus centrist Democrats right now. We see it in all the legislation that's being fought over in Washington, D.C. And there's a lot of finger pointing, we are a big tent. We have a lot of people who want different things. I understand that. Are there enough progressives right now to make things happen? Or is this a situation where we need another and we need another 2 years?
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah, Gary's having internet issues.
I'm gonna wait for him to join to ask that question.
That's a really good question.
It is a very good question, and actually, I'm gonna take my
circle back to it.
I'm gonna take my sweater off because my heat just kicked on really high in the New York apartment here.
Are progressives making more noise than what they're capable of delivering? Is my question.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay, so first I want to address this. I cannot stand the way people have framed leftists or progressives in Congress. We have had some of the most staunch progressives ever for over 20 years now. One of them, its name is Representative Barbara Lee. She's one of the most progressive women we've had in Congress. She still is one of the most progressive. She's the most progressive woman. And we have ignored her and pretended that all of a sudden we got progressives in Congress. This isn't true. And this is why, to me, this is an issue that is laced with racism, because we have ignored the fact that there are Black people that are already in Congress and Latino people that are in Congress that have been progressive for years, but because they're not maybe great on social media, that they don't get the total shine that this new squad is getting. So to me, and that is not a mark against the squad, I'm saying that why are we ignoring the ones that are voted the most progressive? When you do metrics of who's the most progressive, Barbara Lee always marks as number one over Bernie Sanders, even though she's a representative and he's a senator. But so we already have a presence of progressives. I would also say that regarding centrists, I would say that, we have a lot of like centrists or moderate people, but I firmly believe that a lot of Democrats, that they actually agree on more things than we're saying, right? And I think that one of my issues is I feel like the media has made more of this, like this battle, because one, I've written about this. A lot of the times the media likes to frame politics as if we're a sport, like we're somebody versus who versus. So Congress is constantly brought and looked and viewed as centrists versus progressives, Republicans versus Democrats, like a game. Instead of saying, there are people that are wanting to make sure that we get funding for Build Back Better, and then there are Republicans. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, let's go back. What is your definition of progressive, first of all? Because it has, like, the word dismantle, the connotation has been hijacked.
Yeah.
So what is your definition of a progressive candidate? Like, when you hear progressive, where do you automatically default to when you hear that in a candidate?
To me, when I think that a progressive is somebody that wants to make sure that we are fully funding public projects and federal works projects, like we're fully funding NYCHA public housing, that we're funding public schools to what they need, that we're raising minimum wages to make sure that they're living wages. We're making sure that we have a society that is equitable, that has actual real justice happening in our democracy. So to me, that's what it is. Now, when to me, what the issue with moderates and centrists are,
Sure.
they're still stuck in this idea of like not wanting to offend people. Like that's my issue with moderates and my issue with centrists is they're like, well, we don't want to say certain things that scare us. Like that defund the police conversation to me spun out of control in a way that it didn't need to. To me,
and that's where semantics could have really, really been dove into on our part.
Yeah.
Because even I, as progressive, as forward-thinking as I am, when I heard defund the police, it took me a minute to understand where they were going with it. Because as a soundbite, it sounds very aggressive and it sounds very revolutionary. And even I was a little bit taken aback by that rhetoric.
Yeah.
So I feel like on our part, as Democrats, it would serve us, if you will, if we would somewhat frame our initial messaging as so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, if you will.
Well, the thing is, that's almost impossible to do, and I'll say why. Because you have people that are outside of who are not elected officials, that are movement leaders, that they don't care about crafting a message that's sellable. They're caring about what's an issue that is harming communities. Democrats need not to be scared of those type of words. If someone had said to me, if I was in Congress right now and somebody said, Maya, do you believe in defunding the police? I'm like, okay, first of all, what does the word defund mean? It means to reallocate and to re-examine budgets. Who has defunded public education? Republicans have. Who has defunded healthcare? Republicans have. So are you guys upset about the fact that they've defunded all of these issues? Or are you going to quibble about something that hasn't even happened yet? We have not defunded any police. We haven't even defunded them in New York. Even though, so to me, it's about Democrats being better at knowing how to respond. You can't control messaging in that way, but you can respond in a way that's responsible and that people understand. I have friends that are police officers in New York City because I live in New York City and it just happens, right? But I've also said to them, I think that the budgets are too high for police in New York City. I don't think that federal dollars should go to our local police. We don't need to allocate federal money to police officers. Why are we doing that? We didn't used to. We never did that before until after 9/11. And then we started putting more cops in schools. And what happened? If you're a black child in my district, you're 5 times more likely to have a police altercation or be suspended in school because of police presence, right? Yeah. So we see that that's why that's an issue. So to me, we don't have to be afraid of slogans. To me, do I think that the defund the police slogan was good? No, I thought it was terrible. But it doesn't. It doesn't. But to me, again, it's not about like that's not what I would have come up with to discuss budgets and allocations. Democrats need not.
They don't understand the language and the way that protest goes about. The language of protest is supposed to be combative.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's supposed to get your attention. And then once you got their attention, therein lies the education. They have just gotten so good at just taking that initial slogan and running with it and redefining it for what they think it should mean. And they blast it all over their, pretty much electorate, their airwaves, and it gets hijacked. Somewhat like the word woke. I don't use the word woke anymore because initially woke was something that was enlightening. They turned it into something that's pretty much the quite opposite. Nobody likes to use it.
But I want to stress this to everybody. Republicans can do that to anything. If Democrats said, we're a party of clean water, Republicans could say, I want to drink dirty water, and how dare you tell me to drink clean water? So we have to stop with this idea that we're going to come up with something magical that all of a sudden that Republicans are going to be like, have a hard time. Because Republicans can twist and turn like a snake on any issue. They're fine with hypocrisy. They're fine with lying. And by the way, they're fine with democracy ending. How do you fight back against that?
I think that's brand new, though, Maya, to be honest with you. I feel like our last president, I'd hate to say his name, I feel like he made it more, niche, more mode that, democracy is now ending. Because prior to him, I felt like we were a country that we were divided on issues, but we were all for the betterment of our democracy. You wouldn't agree to that?
I would agree that before social media happened, messaging was a little bit more controlled and there was a sense of partial unity in this country, that we're kind of working together. However, the issues that we have now, we've had for a long time. Here at Madison Square Garden, we had in the 1940s a sold out Nazi party regime filling Madison Square Garden. We have same issues. And I will also say a lot of people in this country have been saying for a long time, like, we're drowning, we're having issues, we're frustrated. And you've had Republicans and Democrats both saying, calm down, we're going to figure it out, or you're not working hard enough. With social media, there's been a lot of terrible things that have happened, but a lot of the good things that have happened is you're starting to hear new divergent voices that have said, listen, things haven't always been great. I mean, in this country in 1955, if you were Asian American, you were not considered a full citizen yet.
No.
We have a country that, when I said earlier, we have never been a fully enfranchised society. We still don't let a lot of people that are re-entering citizens from incarceration, they don't automatically get their right to vote back. So we still have a society that's not a democracy that's not strong. However, I think that this would be a winning message for Democrats. Democrats can say, listen, we have different ideas of how we want to move forward, but we should all agree we want to move forward. And how do we do that? By protecting one of the longest democracies this world has ever seen, by strengthening it through voting rights and making sure that we are, and then you go into like, how are we eradicating poverty? Making sure no one is, so that's what I'm saying. Democrats have a chance to have a more unifying message. But
Karen has a question I feel like you should address. It's a really great question. Thank you, Karen. She wants to know, how would you work with and inform the general media in a way that would get their attention and spread truth?
Well,
do you think it's even possible?
I mean, I will say right now, it's tough as a lot of our media are conglomerates. And you can tell what they decide that they're going to be messaging on in the day, because you'll see all the channels talking about the same thing in that day time. Yeah. To me, what I think that we should be investing in is in local media again, and in public media like PBS and things like that, so that we make sure that we have independent medias that are still investigating, that are telling more storylines, that are giving more nuance to things, talking about policy. Yeah. Right now, our media is very invested in it's called game framing, which they make all of politics look like it's a sporting event. A lot of our media is very invested in clickbait coverage, coming up with controversial things just so people get outrage, a cycle of outrage. So to me, if I was sitting in messaging with the media, I would tell them to their face, and I have. I mean, I've sat with reporters from Bloomberg, from MSNBC, from NBC, and said to them, listen, you are misunderstanding some of the issues that are really happening in this country, and you're misrepresenting it. Let me tell you some of the things that are happening and why. I've literally clinicked reporters and things that they are missing. They're not knowing how to.
Has your messaging been hijacked at all at this point, or have you pretty much been consistent as to what you're hearing other people say? Is it pretty much consistent as to what's coming out of your mouth and what your platform is about, or have you noticed that some people have run with some of the things you said and somewhat twisted it? Have you seen
I think that will always happen. I haven't really seen that. I did have one reporter, a local New York reporter. Of course. But to me, I am somebody that recognizes that, like, if the second most powerful person in the United States or the world, Kamala Harris, is daily eviscerated, is daily harassed, someone like me wouldn't be able to avoid that as well. And it's unfortunately the way this landscape is set up right now. But I will say, all you can do is do your best to message and recognize that the media is going to do what they're going to do. And that's why I'm thankful for social media, so that you can have a response instead of the media being the only one with the voice and only one with a voice. I will say that.
Let's talk about your roots in LGBTQ activism.
Yeah.
Where did you find your connection with that particular community? Like, when did you begin to build that empathy and advocate on their behalf?
Well, first, I'm a bisexual woman, so I'm in the community.
I was going to let you.
But I will say that, early on in my life, my mother, our favorite thing was like in her kitchen. her friends would like come in and talk to her, like when they'd have like little cooking parties and stuff like that. And I remember her friend Eileen, who's still a friend of mine. She was talking about this, and I was probably we had moved out of the storage facility into this house. Okay, so this was the last house I shared with my mother.
This is still in New Mexico.
This is still in New Mexico,
okay.
and I really love this. I love this house. We had it for 2 short years, but so I was in this apartment. So I was a teenager, and Eileen was talking about the fact that her girlfriend wouldn't hold her hand in public, and I remember thinking, "Gosh, that makes me really sad," you know. And so I was like, and she asked me then, Eileen goes, I'm sorry, is it messing you up? I said, messing me up for what? That I'm talking about a woman. And I'm like, no, like, so this woman you're dating, because I was young, she just wanted to make sure that when she was talking about lesbian issues, you know, I was like, no, I get the gist. Your girlfriend is not wanting to hold your hand. That sucks. I'm sorry. So early on, I kind of understood some of the issues, but also, you know, I grew up at a time where our government was really hostile to the LGBTQ community. I mean, everything from like Reagan saying, I'm not giving funding for AIDS. Oh no. And the way they were messaged on it, the stereotypes that were coming from television, all of it was really grotesque. I mean, we even had, you know, Bill Clinton, who everyone said, oh, he's so progressive. At the same time, like, don't ask, don't tell was very regressive. And people,
well, in the beginning, we were upset with Obama because he didn't do what we wanted him to do in his first, you know, term.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a game. It's politics. You kind of have to play it. You know?
At the same time, that is why a lot of us, including myself, are tired of that. We're tired of that approach. We're tired of this idea of like, let's wait until the polling comes out to see if it's okay. I don't think we needed the polling to come out to see if
I don't know if he waited till the polling came out. I just felt like he waited till he had more cover. You know, a second term where he knew there wouldn't be so much backlash in trying to win again.
But again, that is that risk-averse strategy that I'm tired of. We shouldn't be worrying about those things anymore. If you don't get another term because this country is homophobic or transphobic, then, you know, that's what this country is. But stand up loudly. It's like the same thing that MLK did to Bayard Rustin, right? He was like, Rustin Bayard. I always get his name backwards and forwards. Bayard Rustin. I'm like, Bayard Rustin. So, you know, Bayard is the one who basically wrote his I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah, he was the backbone of the civil rights movement.
Yeah, he was out and proud gay Black man. And he asked MLK, can you discuss, you know, gay and lesbian issues? And MLK was like, listen, the country is barely willing to accept us right now as Black people. Can that wait? So that wait, can you wait for your turn? Can you wait for that? I mean, James Baldwin would talk about it. He's like, how long do I have to wait for your progress to let me be a human? Yeah. So to me, I'm like, I think we have to be done with that. That is over. This politeness of like,
I would say now it's over, but even as I was growing up and developing as a youth, and even in my 20s, I felt like that game was pretty much still a part of the political system. Now I don't feel as much, but I felt like it was because we just had too much of a right-wing evangelical stronghold on our Democrats and you know, our Republicans. So I don't know. To me, it was necessary, but I do understand your point of view, Mike.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying someone that's like, you should have known in 1920 about this. You should have known in 1950. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when I look at Obama and I go, you know, he was somebody that came in. I cried when he was elected. Yeah. When he and Michelle posted their photo yesterday, I retweeted it because they look so good together, you know. So, but Obama and Hillary both, in a way, I kind of feel bad because they played the game that everyone told them that they needed to play, right? Hillary Clinton needed to be a certain way to get through the game. There's so much misogyny. And so she played what she needed to do to get in a position of power. Obama thought, if I'm somebody that is going to listen to Republicans and make concessions, they're going to treat me with respect. And we saw right away that that wasn't true.
He saw that the first turn.
Exactly. And I know that was really painful for him. And it's still painful to me. So I'm not saying that I am not mad at Obama and I'm not mad at that. What I'm more of right now is I'm tired of the idea that now we have to compromise on humanity. Do we have to compromise on like how much we spend on highways? Sure. But should we compromise on human rights anymore, or voting rights, or civil rights? No, I think that time has to be over. We're no longer compromising on those. So I'll say that.
No, no. What's keeping racism alive, Maya?
Well, so many things. I mean, to me, it's like a chicken before the egg situation. We still have a lot of policies, and we still have a media that kind of allows and imbues racism, right? Like, look at this critical race theory argument that was not out of nowhere. It's an astroturfed issue, which meaning that it's Republicans are and their think tanks are paying people to go into schools and raise a big stink about something that they're not even sure what it means. Like, they're not sure what critical race theory is, right? So to me, and then the media is like, well, is critical race theory bad? It's like, media, why are you participating in this argument in that way? And then we have lots of policies that are still keeping racism and racist things in place. Like, we have tons of environmental racism that is occurring. We're not eradicating that. We still aren't punishing or having, we still don't have things in place for, like, when police brutality is happening. We still have police that are getting away with things in New York and everywhere for harming people. We're still allowing things like letting people languish in solitary confinement in jail when we know the UN has deemed that as torture. Yeah. So some of the things that are keeping racism alive is, one, is some policies, and two, this country is a country that was built on the idea that there was a racial hierarchy, you know? And so to me, it is hard for some people.
But I feel like that's a very antique notion that this country was, because I feel like and this is even in my interaction, I have like the United Colors of Benetton in my family. And when I dare bring up, issues that, what they went through back in the day, what, our oppressors put us through, they'll be like, oh my God, that sucks. Yeah. But then at the same time, it's their parents, I feel, that are pretty much the gatekeepers of it, don't want their children to know or be ashamed of what they've done. So therefore, they don't want them to be exposed to it altogether. So I feel like it's not necessarily the generation now that's keeping it alive, but it's the generation right before us, because they're feeling so much of the shame and stigma of what they've done all of a sudden. Do you kind of follow my logic there?
Yeah, to me, we have new generations of people that are growing up that are still imbibing racist ideas. Even Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, who, wrote 2 or maybe 3 now wonderful books about anti-racism, talked about the fact that when he was 18, he gave a speech in school, and he realizes now, to his shock and horror, how much racism he had imbibed in this speech. And he says that being an anti-racist is constant work. We're having to constantly look at the words and how we're using them and how we're talking to people. And so we have new generations of people that are growing up with lots of racist ideas, because there's so many racist ideas that are embedded in this country. If you even look at television shows from just a year or 2 ago, you start listening to some of the things that certain people say, you hear how many racist ideas are coming out of people's mouths. And
are these young people you're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, okay. No. There are lots of young people that are really working to be anti-racist. And you have a lot of, there was like that white kid that stood in front of a Native American person with his Trump hat on. Yeah. We're going to continue to have new generations of people that are spewing racist ideas and that want to uphold a hierarchy.
Like those are more segmented populations, and I always defer to hip hop. I feel like, and hip hop has this stain, but I feel like hip hop has done more to include us under one tent more than any other movement is possible. I really, really do. Yeah. And it sort of baffles my mind that we have a hip hop culture and there's still a racist culture at the same time. I don't understand how they coexist.
Well, I would say that's true for all music across the board. My husband and I will talk about the fact that, like, Eric Clapton, Led Zeppelin, this is stolen music, and they're not giving credit to Rolling Stones, right? So to me, that's actually even more insidious in a lot of ways, because to me, it's like when 2 Live Crew was saying stuff, they were just like, hey, we're having fun, we're letting it all hang out, right? But, you know, but to me, when you're like stealing culture and claiming it as your own, to me, that's even more insidious. So I wouldn't just relegate it to hip hop or to hip hop culture. I had a really great conversation with, I would say with KRS-One and Pharoah Monk, and I've talked to a lot of Mos Def, who now goes by Yasmin Bey. I've talked to a lot of people in hip hop, and these are a lot of like thinking, brilliant people who are thinking about how they're discussing. But sometimes it's also just about getting loose, right? They just want to have like a little bit of fun and let go. So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't put an emphasis for me personally on what goes on with hip hop. Yeah, because I see a lot of other music that is still not addressing some of the things that they say or do.
Well, I'm just noticing the way the whole movement has influenced not just us as Black and brown people, but even the younger white children. You know, they dress like it. You know what I'm saying? They have appropriated so much of the culture. Yeah. And you would think some of the psyche of hip hop movement is seeping into their brains to where they're like, wait a minute, why are my parents saying that Black and brown people are so bad when I am really digging what they're putting out? Yeah. You know, so that's why I have a hard time wondering how those two worlds exist. Maybe it's just my, my own homegrown philosophy, but it's a little baffling in my mind.
I mean, it's an entry point to explore and to look at and to think about. I mean, I will say that I like that all culture influences other cultures, but then there is also a line of like appropriation and claiming as something else, So I would say that.
Latino. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say, did Gary just go away permanently?
I think Gary just went away. He never was able to jump back on, but I see him in the chat, so he's
Hi, Gary.
Okay. I know. What is it about what you're offering right now, your platform, that's resonating with your more immediate culture, the Latino culture that you live among and that you hope to serve? What's resonating about your platform? What are you hearing they're latching on to right now?
I think because like Latino community, like Black community, like Asian community, like that is like not monolithic, and that they understand that I understand that, right? That they know that there are different concerns. I think, like even during when Trump won a lot of Cuban voters in Miami, a lot of people were really upset and angry about that. And I just said, okay, do you not know how that there was like divisions and different thinking and different cultures about like, that's for every culture, like, right? There was like, Black Republicans, there are gay Republicans. So to me, I thought it was funny, the backlash against that. And I also said that I recognize that a lot of people didn't understand that the word socialism was really scary to certain people that lived in countries where they felt that socialism was the reason why their economic systems collapsed and failed. Sure. That wasn't necessarily the case. It was usually what happened in our country, which is that you have groups of people that are very wealthy, taking money out of the system and then blaming it on that. And I will say what when I'm talking to Latino community, and in my community here is, you have a lot of people from Puerto Rico here, from the Dominican Republic, from Mexico, from Venezuela. One of the things that they like is that I'm talking about worker protections, and they're also talking about the fact that we're not monolithic with language. I mean, I grew up being told not to speak Spanish. My mother was fluent in Spanish, my grandfather was fluent in Spanish, but a lot of Latinos understand that our country was telling us to assimilate. If you speak Spanish, then people are going to think less of you. Again, racist ideas that were imbibed into this culture. Like, I'm learning Spanish now. Like, I speak some Spanish, but I'm continuously learning Spanish. But they like the idea that I'm very truthful and forthright about that. But this country was telling us not to speak Spanish. I mean, J-Lo's learning Spanish because she did. So, she didn't speak Spanish either because she was also told, don't speak it, on and on and on. So I would say that, but it's mostly, again, it's economic issues, worker protection issues. Okay. And again, a lot of Latinos that are...
issues that they're dealing with in real time, I'm assuming.
And family issues. Again, no groups are monolithic, but a lot of things that are happening in this era is like, especially with like Puerto Rican people, like, Puerto Rican people are dealing with like taking care of their own family. That there's no money for like home services, taking care of their family. There's money issues or budgetary issues. So there's similar things like that they want to talk about, family issues. So it's a
What's
good.
so attractive about you is that you understand what it is that needs to be fixed in detail. You know
Thank
what
you.
I'm saying?
Well, thank you.
And you know, when people like understand how to fix a problem, not just the overall problem, but the little minute issues that can move the needle forward. It might seem small, but you know, by just fine tuning this little part, bam, you know, therein lies,
Yeah.
you know, progress. It comes out in your conversation. I'm just so glad you were able to talk to me today. The current administration, Biden Harris, how are you feeling about it?
I feel like that they entered, just like Obama, they were handed just
A dumpster fire.
a dumpster fire. Thank you. Just a dumpster fire and said, deal with it. Right. So Obama comes in and, George Bush and his administration had lit everything on fire. Sorry, economic crash, this and the other. And Obama got together and had to make some hard decisions. Unfortunately, to me, what Obama did are some of the same things that Biden is doing that I wish he wouldn't do. First of all, there is night and day difference between Trump and
see the
Biden.
angst well enough in your
No, I'm saying that I'm saying that I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for Biden. I'm grateful for Harris. Like for anybody that's like they're awful, I'm like, give me a break. We just had a dictator, you know. And so to me, it's not that. My issue is that once again, when I said we have to be done with being risk averse. Once again, Biden is being really risk averse about what we can and cannot do, like the student loan issue. He didn't have to forgive everybody's debt in that moment. I don't think he even can do. I read the white paper written by the Roosevelt Institute that said he might be able to forgive it, but we're not sure. And we'll probably end up in court. But what he could have done, no problem, is say, listen, everybody, we're still in this pandemic. We got a new variant. Let's go ahead and hold off on student loans again until September, and then we'll revisit it.
He's actually done that, right?
To May. And but he had to be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to the last minute until he agreed. To me, it should have been the second the Omicron variant came out, he should have made a grand announcement. And that's another thing. Democrats are really bad about like tooting their own horn. Biden should have come out and said, hey, listen, I hear you. There's a crisis. Let's work on this thing. Let's go ahead and make sure the student loans aren't, people don't have to pay them until this time. You know, interest is not going to accrue at this time. He shouldn't.
You're getting donations, sweetheart.
Yay!
Thank you, Scotch.
Thank you. But I want Biden and Harris to recognize that, listen, we know that they can't do everything that they would like to do right now because we have a gridlock Senate. We have Sinema, we have Manchin that are really not playing ball. They are playing ball, but they're playing ball as Republicans. But I just want Biden and Harris to come out and just have more conversations and say, listen, we have a gridlock Senate. We need to make sure that voting rights is a priority. We need to make sure that Americans are drowning in debt right now. We need to figure out a way. So they just have to be more vocal. That's what I would like to see them is have more conversation.
I need more aggression on both of their parts.
Yeah.
And I know it's not always fun to play on the defense, but I feel like because of the political environment that we're in right now, it takes a little bit of not meanness, but a little bit more directness and assertiveness to get people's attention, just to cut through some of the muck. Yeah. Because niceties aren't going to work right now. You have to let people know that you have some might behind your punch.
Absolutely.
And I feel like they can benefit from that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would also say too, we've had these kind of conversations in our country, we keep having over and over and over again. For example, like I was going to do like a live filibuster for 24 hours, but I did it for 13 hours instead. And during that time, I read works by Fannie Lou Hamer and Malcolm X and MLK. And they were saying the same things 50, 60 years ago as we're saying now, which is like, listen, this idea that we need to wait for things to get better. We can't, James Baldwin said it too. And all of them advocated that we join together to push our country forward. They said we can argue privately with each other and be like, you better get this done. But in public, we need to be like, we're all for this. Democrats have to do that because we are up against people, and I always say elected Republicans, because there are Republicans that I've been able to speak to, and moderates that I've been able to speak to, and leftists that I've been able to speak to, that have been able to hear me and actually listen to me when I'm discussing things, right?
Well, you have a tone that sort of cuts through some of the muck. You do.
Well, thank
I mean,
you.
I have to like stop and just listen to you because you're very direct in what you're saying, but it's a little sugar that it's wrapped in, you know, at the same time.
Well, I will say this. I know that when it comes down to it, we're all human at the end of the day. Everybody has something that they're fearful of or worried about and or in pain about, unless you're a sociopath, and I don't know how to deal with that. But
and the Republicans understand that to no end. They understand how to tap into someone's fear.
They do.
And govern their entire platform based on the fact that they've scared this person shitless.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
That's very true.
That is absolutely true. And it's one of the reasons why Democrats do have they have a harder time. And I say that not to disparage Democrats. We have a harder time. We have a bigger tent. We let everybody in.
And that's what I want you to talk about real quick, because during your filibuster you just mentioned, you talked about why there's so much infighting within the Democratic, Party. And you made such a beautiful point that I had never even thought about before, and I shared it with Gary. Can you talk about that real quick as to why we're constantly aiming toward the same goal, but we're fighting each other as to how to get there? Can you talk about that real quick?
I mean, we just have so many divergent voices in it. And there's a lot of people, too, that have really been left out for a long time. And they have found their voice and they want to express it. And we have to let people do that. And I don't think it's a bad thing that we don't agree on everything. And we have to stop with this idea that Republicans will get in lockstep on voting day and go out and vote for someone as terrible as Trump. And Democrats are over here always going, well, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. So to me, I'm like, let's have the conversation. Let's argue about it. And at the end of the day, come out unified saying, listen, this is what we want to do to move us forward in the next 2 years. And we need to start having long-term strategies too. We need to start saying Republicans, they plan decades in advance. I want Democrats to recognize that we can have infighting and to have discussions because we are, like trans groups and Native communities, and everybody has different things that are harming them specifically. And we have to recognize that. We have to acknowledge that and say, okay, I hear what you're saying. I hate when someone says, well, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that, but I think we need to, it is the ultimate.
Well, I feel like some of that is the seeds of that were planted when we all just got behind the Biden-Harris ticket, because not a lot of us in the Democratic Party were happy, but we understood the giant that we needed to slay.
Of
course.
We
just did it.
Of
so
course.
I felt like we have that in us.
Yeah.
But our default is to pretty much get all that we want, or we're just going to take our ball and go home.
It is true. And I will say that right now we are more splintered than ever vocally, I would say. I'm saying that there's always been these divisions there. But keep in mind, too, we still have a low participation, a low Democratic participation. I'm saying Democrat with a little d. We're still having, like this presidential election was the first time we had that many people vote ever in a presidential election.
We were voting out of survival.
Exactly.
As Black and brown people. We were scared. We were going to literally lose our lives.
And not only that, but we barely won still. Even though Biden and Harris won by millions of votes, technically, we really only won by 3 states, only a couple of 100,000 votes separated us. So that
anytime your life is on the chopping block, you would pretty much do things. I mean, we weathered COVID while it was rampant.
Exactly.
And got out there and made sure that it didn't happen.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
We've never had the luxury within the, as Black and brown people to just pick and choose our candidates based on how the world that we want to live in. It's like, okay, who's going to kill me the last?
It's true. But I think that's also where, and I think that's also where some apathy comes from too, because some people want a return on it. The people that tend to be the most vocal about that return are usually the ones that aren't the closest to the harm. I've noticed that they're the ones that are really vocal, where I'm just like, are you worried about discrimination? Because I don't feel like that. So
I know
that's
like something to be in the conversation, but is that really where your heart is?
Exactly. I will say that.
Maya, this has been we didn't even get to all the questions, but oh my God, this has been so beautiful. I know you're going to be on You Can't Be really pretty soon, because I've already seen your invite in the chat. How can we now? My friend Scotch has already donated to you here, and he's pretty much posted the link where people can donate to you as well. Folks, go to our Instagram page at MayaContreras.com. On Instagram. and you can donate to her there. But are there other portals that you can also be donated to as well? I mean, are you
If
like,
you just go to
if
my
I went to
website.
ActBlue?
Oh yeah, it's all ActBlue. If you just go to my
Okay.
website and you
Okay.
can donate that way to
Okay.
electmaya.com, and it says donate right
Okay.
there. Every dollar counts. I'm grateful for all of it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And yeah, soon after petitioning happens, that means to get onto the ballot. Soon I'll be asking wanting more volunteers to happen and things like that. But no, I'm excited. I have my first like forum with Maloney
Oh, wow.
this Friday. Yeah, that's what I've been prepping for. I actually really get excited to talk about policy issues. I believe though that we're not talking together at the same time. They're letting me talk for half an hour, then I have to go away, and then But I don't have a problem. Like I really did go up to Maloney and explain to her why I'm running against her. So when people are like, "I'm so offended," I'm like, "But she's not." You know, so it's like you don't need to be on her back. You can, but you don't need to be.
Girl, you have the fortitude. Oh my God, I cannot wait to see this. Beautiful. Maya, thank you so much for being my first guest of the year, joining Gary and I really went MIA.
That's okay. And you know, Jermaine, I appreciate that you invited me. I love talking to you. You know, both of us could just talk for 12 hours nonstop.
You know? Gary wants you to like blast all of your social media accounts so we can hear them from your voice, your social media accounts. So you're on Facebook, Maya Contreras.
And so it's all Maya T. Contreras across all platforms.
Okay.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all have the same handle, Maya, M-A-Y-A-T, in the middle, Contreras, C-O-N-T-R-E-R-A-S. I wanted to make sure that people wouldn't have to come up with different ones for me. But yeah, and if you guys enjoyed the chat, give me a little shout out on Twitter or shout out anywhere you want, and I deeply appreciate that.
Oh my God, this is awesome. Thank you so much. And you go enjoy the rest of that New Year's meal that you posted on Instagram.
Thank you. I have one sliver left. My husband basically took that down, so I got one left.
I had lasagna on my New
that sounds good.
But I did make me some black-eyed peas.
So there you go. Have to do it. Good luck for the year.
Maya, you have a great week, and I know we'll be chatting soon.
Absolutely.
You Can't Be Blue pretty soon as well.
Yes, I would love that. Absolutely. Okay.
All right, dear.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Folks, that was my very first episode of Soapbox Sunday 2022 with the dynamic Maya Contreras. And we had Gary Carter Green of You Can't Be Blue there for a little bit, but anytime I can get either one of them, it's just a success for me. Next week, we are talking Black women in television. Woo! It's going to be a fiery conversation. Yet another fiery conversation. I have Dr. Alfreda Martin of Iowa University. And you know her, Joyce Stevens, out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'll tell you, she's the host of Thoughts and Moments. She's going to be on for me next week. And we're going to talk about this sudden explosion of all these sister girls on TV. All right, folks, thank you so much. And I will chat with you next week. Bye-bye.